all the wonderful things it does.
Thanks. Hello. There's a crazy echo in here. I think there's like a little bit of triangulation over in the corner there. Thanks everybody for having me here. As Rob said, I'm I run a distributor, work a lot with channel partners that sell. Is there actually a speaker on in there? Okay, that's why I was like, that can't be that good of an echo chamber. Run a distributor and work with a variety of different products, and one of those was the ToolsOnAir product. I got involved with ToolsOnAir actually almost back at the inception of the company, which was late 2008, early 2009 at NAB, when I saw these goofy little Austrians with their one little laptop in the way back of the South Lower Hall wearing these t-shirts that said broadcast on a Mac, and I'm like, you guys are insane, you know, this is silly, you know. But after a couple of years of watching the product grow and through a couple of partnerships that they had with some of the other manufacturers I worked with, I got to really know the team, I got to really know the product, and I got to really understand how far they had come in such a remarkably short period of time in building some really solid tools. And the ToolsOnAir product itself came from a company called Tools at Work. And Tools at Work is actually the longest standing Apple reseller in the country of Austria. They sell more Apple in the country of Austria than anybody else. And about 6 years ago, after having sold every other solution under the sun, from Softron and Gallery and Building for Media and Bug TV, anything that ran on a Mac that had the words broadcast in it, the owner, as Walter puts it, this all sucks. And they said, we're going to build it ourselves. So he hired in a full development team, went to the drawing board with all of the knowledge they'd accumulated from all of the other systems they'd used, and put together this kind of modular approach to doing relatively simple broadcast tools, handling ingest, handling live CG, handling clip servers, and then handling full scheduling and automation. So the product's been really great, I think, and as you know, we move forward, I see just more and more capabilities. I'm working currently with Richard right now, actually, to implement wide orbit traffic control into the system, for example. So we're starting to move upscale on the market when everybody kind of looked at us a few years ago and said, oh yeah, it runs on a Mac. And now they're like, oh, it runs on a Mac. You know, it's perceptions have changed in a relatively short period of time. If anybody wants my email address, it's my name at provideotech.net. And then feel free. I got cards up here too if you guys want to reach out to me after the fact. I don't want to go too crazy into slideshows. I hate slide decks. This one should go pretty quickly, and we'll get into the meat and potatoes of the actual product. But I want you guys to get a feel for what the products actually are. It is software at the end of the day. It runs on a Mac. It ties into various pieces of hardware. I've got it all kind of laid up here too. So after the prezo, if anybody wants to come up, poke, prod, touch, ask questions, all good with that. But we've got 4 primary products. We've got Just Live, Just Play, Just In, and Composition Builder. Just Play is our 24/7 master control software. It's what's being used right now to play out DPS TV. It's basically a tool that allows you to schedule not only movie playback of clips, it allows you to schedule live pass-through, it allows you to schedule secondary events and graphics, and you can also schedule router switches, patch points, so on and so forth. It is a fully redundant system capable, so we can, in this case I've got just a Mac Mini here running, but we can put those in 2 configurations where they're both playing out simultaneously. And downstream, you got 2 inputs into your master control router. You can put a protection switch there, or you can just have the operator switch it if something goofy happens on one or the other. We do have an N+1 capability as well. So if you want to have 5 channels and you want a 6th just sitting there as a hot spare, that 6th will wait for the heartbeat of one of the other channels to die, and it'll just pick up, load in its schedule, and start playing out the content. The UI is pretty simple. Some of you guys that saw the master control area may have gotten to see it already. I'll show it to you guys a little bit here in a second as well. But pretty intuitive. We've gotten a lot of compliments from customers that have used other kind of scheduling systems over the past few years. We got our little screen shrink going. What just happened to my HDMI? There it goes. Next product's Just Live. Just Live is actually a live clip and CG. Biggest thing, the difference between Just Play and Just Live is human triggered, which means that a human being either presses a button on something or some something triggers something, whether it's a GPI closure, a click of a mouse hitting the space bar, using the USB control surface, whatever it might be, to trigger graphics, to trigger playback, to trigger all sorts of different stuff. We do have MOS options as well for the Just Live system, so we have tie-ins with both ENPS and Octopus right now. We actually don't have any customers using iNews, but we're pretty sure it'll just work because of the MOS objects. We know it won't just work because we know Avid. But you know, if anybody wants to be the test case, let us know. And as well with the Studio system, it is a fully fault tolerant. We can put them into setups or N+1 setups. Completely different UI for driving this. This is less clock-based, more human-based. You can set up bins, you can set up playlists, you can trigger things, cue next, roll next, autoplays, loops, all sorts of great stuff. We support a lot of different codecs. One of our big benefits and one of the reasons why we've got a certain degree of popularity is that you don't have to buy a big Vantage or Flip Factory or anything like that to get your content into us. As long as your time base is correct, generally speaking, and this is not 100% true, we figured out the toaster or the TriCaster does, yeah, well, yeah. I watch Sequest and, you know. So that writes a proprietary wrapper that for some reason we can't see even though it's an MOV file. But generally speaking, most of the stuff that you're going to get out of any NLE and most of the stuff that you're going to get out of any sort of standard compression suite is going to work with us. And as long as the time base is correct, so if you're a 2997 station, doesn't matter if the frame sizes matches. We'll actually do scaling and give you the option to modify scaling in real time in the timeline. So you can throw SD clips into an HD timeline, HD clips into an SD timeline. Doesn't really matter. However you're working on your schedule, we can generally handle it. And we support not only the QuickTime movie wrappers, but we also support MXF as well. And we support OP1A, IMX, DVC Pro HD, DNX HD, even ProRes in an MXF container. It's a bunch of add-ons for the products. I talked about some of these. The newsroom one is our MOS integration. Just Play, the router control is kind of nice, where you can actually schedule cross points and things like that. And Wayne can actually show you some of that because that is in use here as well. They're using a AJ Kumo to do all of their routing to master control. And the system is doing all the cross point switching right from the same UI as all the scheduling. Justin is our ingest control system. So this is for capturing media. We can get multiple channels into a single Mac. I've actually got this Mac Pro up here that is Rob and Wayne's Mac Pro that we literally unplugged from the rack over there and threw on the table so you guys can see it. But it's running 2 channels of ingest right now as well, which I'll show you guys in a little bit. That ingest control, we can have 12-core Mac Pro can actually do up to 4 channels of HD in a single machine. A Mac Mini can do 2 channels in a single machine. You can have as many machines lined up as you want. We've got several. I've got a customer that's actually in New Jersey that does nothing but archival for NBC Universal and CNN and Bloomberg, where they literally ship them pallets of tapes, and they've got a rack of 22 beta decks, and they've got 4 Mac Pros or 5 Mac Pros, whatever the math is that works out, and using a Moxa to do all of the RS-422 control of all of these rows of decks. Sit down at one, log capture, hit go, move over to the next channel, do the same thing, go, and by the time they're done with the last one, they're ready to pop another tape into the first one again. And they're a 24/7 operation doing nothing but that, and then they load all that content on these little bricks and they go drop them back off at 30 Rock, and they got to do something with them at the end of the day. We can also do edit while ingest, so if you're in a shared storage environment, you can actually start cutting this stuff as soon as you hit the record button. That can be pretty cool if you're doing fast turn kind of workflows. We do generate proxies in real time as well, so if you're in an environment where you need to record high res, but you also need to deliver something quickly on a thumb drive to somebody in the field or something along those lines, we can do that. Supports crash capture, scheduled capture, and deck control. And it works in channel strips. So each channel strip is a different channel that's coming in, different ingest port. Not necessarily different machines. You can have multiple channels on a single machine. You can control them all remotely from any system on the network. That's the other nice thing. You don't have to walk up to any of our hardware to be able to actually run it. In fact, everything you see today, what I'm going to do is running on my laptop for the UI when all of the meat and potatoes is back here. Live Cut is another product that we've got. Also, tentatively in use here. It's been kind of up and down as how it's to be used. But what LiveCut allows you to do is take the switcher metadata out of a real-time switcher and turn that into an NLE project. So we can grab our ISO cams with just in and simultaneously grab all of the cuts that the TD is making and turn them into a project for Final Cut, a project for Premiere, a project for Final Cut X. If you're in yet again, a quick turn sort of environment, there's no faster way to be able to manipulate what just happened live and fix the errors the TD made, or add content, or do pictures in pictures and all sorts of stuff. Has anybody here ever done ISOCAM, multicam cutting at all? No one? Okay, then we'll just skip that one. And we lost my HDMI signal again. There it goes. It's back here. Can a TV go to sleep? I don't know. All right, let's, when in doubt, unplug and plug it back in again. No, it's just straight in HDMI. There it goes. It's back. I don't know what was going on there. Last is Composition Builder. Composition Builder is just a tool that we use to create graphic elements for scheduling and for live CG. So we would use Composition Builder to do things like build this dynamic lower third, or build this little guy up here in the corner. The beauty of doing Composition Builder versus static elements is A, you get motion, which you don't get with a PNG. And B, you can actually change things like timing, stalls, and actual content within the graphic in real time. So instead of doing an After Effects project, and if a new person comes in for lower third, you got to go into After Effects and change the lower third, and then re-export it, and then if they're on screen for a little bit longer than you wanted to, well, guess what? You weren't going to slow down that After Effects clip. It rolled out when it was done. This kind of thing, you can see I've got my lower third that's just been up there since you guys walked in the door, and I can control that pulling in, pulling out anytime I want. That's boring stuff. Okay. So, to the actual applications themselves. And just so everyone knows, too, what we've got going on here, I actually have my master control system feeding into a downstream CG right now. And then I also have that master control and downstream CG program output, which is going to this monitor, and this monitor is going into one ingest channel on this guy. The other ingest channel is actually our camera here. So if you're wondering kind of block diagrams, I just gave you the mental block diagram of what we got.
What's the HD SDI video?
I've got an AJ IOXT for my live CG that's doing the pass-through. I'm actually using an AJ T-Tap for master control at $295. You really can't beat it. And then in this guy, I believe this is a Blackmagic Duo card in here, in this one. We don't support Blackmagic for the playout side of things. Their cards don't do a lot of that stuff. For ingest, it actually works just fine. So I'm in the Just Live interface right now. And the Just Live interface allows you to real-time queue up and control different graphic elements within the system. So you can see over here, I've got a couple of layers that are active. They're stalled. They've been running for about an hour and 56 minutes. But if I want to change content in these elements, I can actually do that. So I can go in real time and say Mike is talking and hit tab, and I'm updating graphics in real time on the air. Whereas obviously, yet again, if we were using static images or things along those lines, we couldn't do that. Building a template-based graphic allows us to do these sort of things. The other thing is that my graphic is not static. So when I actually pull it out, when I pull it in, it's got an animation. My pull out is actually a cut. And when it pulls in, it actually rolls in that animation to a certain specific point, and then it just stalls and waits there for me to pull it back out again, at which point it'll pull back out. So you have a lot of options when it comes to how you want to do stalls within any graphic element. And you can actually set up more advanced graphic elements that have multiple stalls in them. So I've got one here actually that is a world news composition. And if I throw that in and schedule it up, it's actually going to do my little lower third here, and then it's actually going to stop here for a second. And then I can actually trigger going forward again and pulling out the next area within that graphic, everything's working fine, and then the TD says, all right, let's cut that all together, and I cut it and it fades out. So when you're building your templates, if they're things that are frequently used, you can really easily kind of manipulate when they're supposed to stop. So you don't have to do things like pause timing or anything like that. It'll just lock until it's ready for the next logical step. I also have multiple layers running right now, so if you notice in the upper left-hand corner, I've had that motion graphic for the branding happening for ToolsOnAir the whole time. I can pull that out as well and just come out, and we can have multiple layers happening at the same time with different sorts of graphics. And then the other thing Just Live does let us do is we can actually trump if I have it downstream right now, so I can trump the live video and go right into a clip if I want to. So if you're in a live environment where you need, you have one person running both your CG and your VTRs, we can do that all from a single UI. Additionally, we can actually set up, I have one video layer and 2 FX layers here, but we can actually control multiple systems from this UI. So if I had 4 Mac Minis here sitting in a stack, and one of them was VTR-A, the other one was VTR-B, and then the other 2 were on-set display A and on-set display B, I can queue everything up from one interface, line up all of my clips the way I want them to, queue them up and go. So that's a really quick and dirty overview of Just Live. Like I said, after we're done here, if anybody wants to come and play with it more, feel free, come on up.
And the graphics link to an RSS feed?
Yeah, so there's a variety of different ways you can link to things. Generally what you do is with an RSS feed, as long as it's properly formatted as XML, we can see it as RSS, and then you can select elements within it to roll onto screen. We can look at XML as well. So for example, I actually do have another lower third here, and let me pull this one out and roll this one in. So this lower third's actually driven by, and I don't know if you guys can see this, but it's actually driven by an XML UUID. So I have a big database worth of different names in there, and if I switch it to 2, pull it out, and then pull it back in again, it's going to be a different person now. So depending on how you want to build these things, they can access remote data. Composition Builder gives you a certain amount of stuff you can do. To go beyond that, you do have to get into Quartz Composer, which is more of a development tool. That said, ToolsOnAir can develop custom templates for you as well. So if you are looking for a very specific layout and you've designed it all in After Effects and Photoshop, you can basically send it to them and say, I want it to stall at this point, I want it to do this at this point, here's the elements associated, and they will build it for you for a fee. So depending on the environment, that sometimes makes more sense. We've got a lot of news stations internationally that have done that because they use the same kind of branding over and over again. They design it exactly to their spec, and then they just say, hey, just do it. We don't want to mess with it. Deliver us that. There are a couple other kind of neat things that this thing can do as well. We can do things like screen shrinks. So I have got this, let's see, where is it here? Side-scrolling credits. So in this case, I can actually screen shrink what's actually on screen, pull up some credits along the side, pull up something on the bottom here. But within my actual setup, I can actually choose different background elements for all of the different pieces here. So the credits are being driven by a text file, so I could really easily just put in a different text file here to play a different set of credits. That blue gradient along the side was driven by a Photoshop file. The bottom was actually driven by a QuickTime movie, so you can really kind of get crazy with these things if you want to. So that's Just Live. And actually, let's pull out our video here really quickly. Go back to our master control. So this is our master control setup, just play, that I'm actually playing out now. You can see the UI is completely different. We've got a big clock telling us exactly what's going on at any given time within the system. We've got playlists and rundowns that are happening in real time. It shows us where we are at any given time. We can move into the past and into the future. So if I grab my playhead here and move backwards in time, I can see exactly what was on air at any given frame. So at 7/8, well, actually, I'm still set to Eastern time. So at 5:18, 54 seconds and 16 frames, Hugh Jackman was doing this on air. So really easy to kind of tell those sorts of things. With this kind of UI, you can scroll forward, backward. You can grow things and shrink things. So you can see, I can see my entire rundown that's happening. If I hit now, kicks me right back into where we are right now. Our on air shows the first frame of the clip that was on air. This one started with a frame of black. And then it shows the first frame of the next video that's going to air as well. We can do things like, within the timeline itself, we can rearrange the timeline up until the second that a clip is ready to air. So we've got this one right now that's set to end at 21:19:12 seconds. So I got about 3 minutes left on this clip. I can go through here, get rid of clips within the timeline. I can go in, actually browse through the clip. I can split that clip in two, and I can throw a commercial in the middle of it if I want to. So let's do that. So really easy to manipulate things. We can save playlists. So I have this playlist called AJA right now. It's set up with very specific rules. It's got all the clips in it. I've already set all the things I want to do. If I want to re-air that on a different day, I can just drag it over here, save it as AJA. It will show up here. And now I can go to tomorrow. So let's hop over to the 21st. And tomorrow at 9 p.m., we're going to play that same playlist. So scheduling things, reusing things, things like that, generally pretty easy. The other thing that we can do within this is, because it uses the exact same engine as just live, we can do real-time graphics as well. So if I want to go into my rundown here and schedule a graphic, for example, I wanted to go in and have, let's see, we'll go with our, where's my stock ticker? So I can go in and grab this and say in 6 seconds I actually want to pull up my stock exchange ticker overlay for this. I can drag it into my timeline. I can schedule these in their own layer. I can have their own finite defined times. These graphics can actually pull information from the clip that's playing or from RSS feeds. I don't have internet right now, so we're not going to see a whole lot of information in there, but what this is set to do right now is it actually goes out to Yahoo, grabs the top 6 stocks on the Dow and throws them up there with some graphics. But that's all happening scheduled in real time. So we can do things like your end rolling credits or your coming up next or anything like that in the same physical system. You don't need a downstream graphics system to do that. It can happen in the same Mac Mini that's driving everything else. The other thing we do have the ability to do, and Wayne can show you probably a little bit better implementation of this because he's got all the router things involved, but we can do what we call events. And events are either router switches or we can actually switch to the live input. So in this case, if I had live input on my device, I actually don't on my little device here, I can say switch to the input on the board that I'm running the Just Play system with. That'll kick over to live. So if we have a SAT feed coming in, if we have something live from the studio, we can actually schedule it to switch the router a couple of seconds beforehand and then switch over to that in real time. Graphics engine still works over that live as well. So if you have scheduled content or you say, we'll be joining the next in progress because let's say we don't know how long that live event is, we make it an infinite event, we can throw, right before we're about to cut over, throw a real-time graphic in place that says now joining next clip in progress, hit go and it'll fire right over. So a lot of capabilities within this, and yet again, I'm running this all on my laptop. If I quit this application right now, no big deal. We're still running because all it's doing is sending the scheduling information. And I can walk over to any one of these other systems, fire up the same application, and all my information just comes right back up.
You keep track of that clip that should have played but didn't because you were live?
Well, if you do yes, in the as run logs, it'll actually show us didn't play.
But when you do join it, when you jip it, you'll jip it at the right time, or do you actually start playing it when it was scheduled to play?
Either or. So we can do a true jip, or we can do a push where we'll push our entire scheduling out. And then we have these things called sync points where we can actually try to manipulate, remove this commercial or add this promo in to kind of make our timing line up again to a certain sync point in the future where the rest of our schedule locks back into place. It's an option on the channel by channel basis. I'd say 85% of our customers do true jip, where if it's an overrun, it just cuts right in and doesn't push your schedule, but some want the schedule push.
And is all this content stored in that Mac Mini?
It's actually all being stored on my laptop right now. So interestingly enough, I've turned my laptop into a little SAN. It's got a really, really nice SSD in it. It does about 600 megabytes a second, so it has no problem feeding 2 playout channels and 2 ingest channels. In the real world, we'd probably do a shared storage system because I don't think 500 gigabytes is going to go very far in a production environment. But for the purpose of demo, that's what I'm running.
So that's playing out over Ethernet?
Yep. So
Laptop?
one Ethernet cable right here. You can see it kind of running along the floor there. And I've got a little 5-port Linksys switch back there, which is not nice by any means. These guys are plugged into it, and so is that guy. And we're doing all of this over Gigi right now.
Doing what, 720p?
1080i. So
1080i?
yep. And you can see right here in the rundown, I've got various different codecs. So right now I'm actually playing an H.264 file. But if I go into my raw footage here, I could throw some ProRes in there. This is actually a standard def ProRes clip. And then I've actually got here's a high-res ProRes clip. So if I, uh-oh, crap, we're in the wrong clip. I'm going to cut ahead. Oh, there we go. Oh, I scrolled down. I'm sorry. I'm looking at the wrong thing here. I actually just skipped the 2 clips that I wanted to play. Let's cut ahead to that one. So here's some ProRes content that's playing out. So this is 30 megabytes a second as opposed to, 3 or 4 that I was doing with the H.264. But because it's the same time base, doesn't really matter. We can throw it into the same timeline. And this one's got, I think this one's got some polarity problems or interlacing field dominance issues. If I throw a standard def clip in, this is a good example. I'm going to actually do a scale for this because this is a 16:9 standard def clip, and I can throw that in and it'll play back full frame within it. And obviously it's standard def, so you're going to get a little bit of blocking and stuff like that because we just scaled it up 4 times, but still doesn't look too bad. And you can see if you look over on this screen, that's a 720 by 486 4:3 clip. I've applied actually a change to it right here, a scale to it. So I can do aspect ratio conversion based on the clip type. And you can set the engine to default to a certain type of scale too. So if you got a lot of letterboxed standard def content and you're switching to HD, you set the default to be a vertical stretch or whatever. And then if you have that odd clip that gets in, you can switch it on a clip by clip basis for that. So if the core of your content is a certain type, you don't have to do anything every time you drag it in. Yes?
How does your system handle missing materials when it appears in your list here?
It goes black right now.
Warning with the line that says there's a file I'm looking for, but I can't find it on my SAN or hard drive.
It's something that we are actually working on right now, is a better feedback mechanism for that, because the interesting thing is that I'm looking at the same shared storage on my scheduling machine, and the engine, if it drops off the storage, for example, or something like that, my system doesn't necessarily know that yet. So admittedly, we don't get the big red box right now that you really want if the clip's offline. But that's a often asked for thing and has already been escalated into development because it's kind of a no-brainer.
It also depends on your configuration. We have it set up where we're not doing input pass-through of our playout engine. We're simply using the output of the engine as a separate source on our routing switcher. And in our program timeline, we are either outputting from the server or we're taking direct satellite feeds to air. And in those points in our schedule where we are on a live segment from one of our satellite dishes, we actually get red and black hash marks on the timeline. We label those so that we have an indication as to whether or not it's NASA TV or Deutsche Welle TV. But the indication from, as you look at the server interface, is that there's no content there, which is, on one level, is correct, but as far as our programming is concerned, it's just blank for right now because for the next 2 hours we're playing Deutsche Welle TV.
Yeah, and we can do what we also call a gap playlist. So if you have unscheduled holes, like when these guys do the satellite cuts, we can actually fall back onto just a playlist full of promos or something along those lines. and you'll still get the same output. It'll say nothing is scheduled right now, but if for whatever reason your SAT goes down or you don't like what it's on and you cut back into this feed, you'll have content coming out.
Can you capture that into that timeline as kind of an air check?
The
Your off-air signal, or your basically what you're putting out there, can you capture that and go back and review what was actually on the air?
Yeah, if you really wanted to. I mean, we would have to do that with, if you look at the Just In product, which is, good segue. I have it routed right now where I can actually capture the program stream here. So I've got my program feed over here that's actually live to air coming in. If I really wanted to, I could fire up a capture right now.
You could have a just-in channel, for instance, doing an air check, a constant air check.
Yeah, the only downside to that is you're going to want to start and stop and clean it from time to time, right? Because it's writing files to disk. It's not like an EVS or something like that where it's a rolling record. But you can actually do things like, for example, if I want to record right now the studio, so I'm recording the camera, and I'll record a few seconds of that. As soon as I hit stop on that, which it'll stop in a second here, and I go into this little captures folder over on my storage, there's the clip that I just recorded, and I could actually send that to air, and I can set it to play out. Actually, that was the one earlier today. I did it in the wrong order. So that's the clip we just recorded of right through. So with shared storage, I have the ability to record anything that's coming in, and as soon as I hit stop, it's ready for air. And I can mark ins and mark outs. So if you have to do bar trimming and stuff like that because you got feeds coming in, we can do that as well. And the just in system, it's weird, my command key's not doing anything anymore. Where is it here? So we get a real-time kind of overview of what's going on with the channels. We can see a real-time preview of them coming in over Ethernet. And then I can choose a variety of different presets. So I've got a couple of presets here that were made. Some of these are, and then we've got default destinations as well. So we can choose where we want to actually record to. The nice thing about doing it all template-based and preset-based is that you can lock operators into making sure the stuff goes to the right place. And you can even do custom naming conventions. So we've got a default here, but it looks like Rob and Wayne have set up one called No Time, and you can see that it changes the actual schema of the naming convention of the file itself. And now I've only got one input called name, so I can change the name of the file. You could even get rid of name, and you could just tap it with real, date, channel, all that sort of stuff. So they don't even have the option to name it. It just writes the file in a predefined format right onto the disk. And you can do things like multi-channel capture. So if I select both of them at the same time, this may kill my little system here. So full disclosure. But I can hit record on both of them at the same time, and then I can hit stop on both of them at the same time. And yeah, it looks like it's just buffering right now. But if you look, those are those two files already in my rundown. They dumped in, saved. Oh, that's why. Yeah, startup disk is almost full. So yeah, I mean, being able to toss that stuff around, and I have that same, if I hop back over to, yeah, I know. If I hop back over to just live here, I've also got those clips ready to queue up. So if I was recording things from a live in-studio show, and then we're going into commercial, and I want to play that back, I can just queue it up and say, okay, let's run the little melt going back into commercial, and I can, put together a little cross-point edit right within my rundown here. So I can say, you know what, let's grab all of these clips that we did these short captures on during the last couple minutes. Let's select them all, let's queue them all up in order, and let's set them all to play next. And then I can say, all right, let's go. And it's just going to play them back to back to back. So boom, boom, boom. And now we're back to live. So yet again, depending, if you have shared storage in place, you can do a whole lot with the Just suite of tools. So that's kind of my dog and pony show for the most part. Obviously, I've got everything up here and running. Anything you guys want to see or get a little more info on, feel free to come on up. And then you also have the facility tour that Rob was going to give now. I'm free to hang out as long as anybody wants to tonight. I got nowhere to be but a hotel room. So if you guys want to wax poetic about some of this stuff, feel free. And